A mysterious African man walked into one of the banks in Dubai. He's not just any visitor, he has an unbelievable plan. With smooth talk and an air of mystery, he quickly becomes a close friend of the bank manager. Then, out of nowhere, he drops a bombshell. He claims he's a wizard who can double money using jinn and black magic. This sorcerer, with his persuasive charm and enigmatic aura, doesn't just win over the bank manager's trust, he turns him into an unwitting accomplice. The manager, spellbound and captivated, facilitates the transfer of a staggering sum, $242 million. But the African sorcerer's tale doesn't end there. He journeys to America, where he begins lavishly spending his newfound fortune. He indulges in every whim: luxury cars, opulent houses, exquisite jewelry, and the company of beautiful women. He seems untouchable, living a life that most can only dream of. However, things take a dramatic turn. His flashy lifestyle catches the wrong kind of attention, and soon, he's caught up in a messy legal battle with the US government. This story is among the most astonishing and peculiar stories you will ever hear. It's a narrative of fraud operating on an entirely different level, so make sure to watch it to the end. Today we're delving into a truly peculiar story. Some might think it's a work of fiction or embellished with lies, but this story is grounded in reality without any exaggeration. American court cases confirm the story's reality, along with testimonies from lawyers and substantial evidence. We'll explore all these details in this video. Our protagonist is a man named Babani Sissoko from Mali. The events date back to 1995 when Sissoko went to Dubai, which was instilled as a major tourism and economic hub in the region, attracting people from various countries and ethnicities to establish businesses and trade. However, upon his arrival in Dubai on a business visa, Sissoko went to the Dubai Islamic Bank, one of the largest banks in the city. He went straight to the main branch and insisted on meeting the bank manager, Mohammed Ayoub. The employees were surprised. It's not usual for someone to walk in and demand to see the bank manager immediately. Despite this, Sissoko persisted until he got a meeting with Ayoub. When Ayoub inquired about the purpose of his visit, Sissoko requested a car loan. Typically, certain criteria are needed for a loan, like having a job or a steady income, which Sissoko didn't have, especially as a recent arrival in Dubai. However, he somehow convinced Ayoub to grant him a car loan without any collateral. Afterward, Sissoko thanked Ayoub and invited him to his apartment for dinner. Initially, Ayoub was hesitant, but Sissoko insisted, and to persuade Ayoub to visit his apartment and accept the dinner invitation, Sissoko tantalized him with a promise of showing him something extraordinary and unique from his culture, a marvel he had never seen before, assuring Ayoub he wouldn't regret it. Ayoub's curiosity was piqued, especially in the 1990s when tales of magic and jinn were more mystical than today, and people were more fascinated by and believed in them. Eventually, Ayoub agreed to the invitation. In the evening, Ayoub arrived at Sissoko's apartment. Sissoko welcomed him, and after some initial conversation and hospitality, Sissoko led Ayoub to a dark, smoke-filled room resembling something from another world, filled with various objects. There, Sissoko revealed that he was a sorcerer capable of using jinn to double any amount of money, meaning if Ayoub brought any amount, Sissoko claimed he could return twice the sum. Ayoub, listening intently and observing the room, seemed to be drawn in by this strange and curious world. To make a test, Ayoub called a relative to bring 100,000 dirhams, or approximately $25,000. When the money arrived, the bank manager handed it to Sissoko, and they both entered the dark room, which truly resembled a sorcerer's chamber. In the center of the room, Sissoko sat down with the money in front of him while the bank manager stood and watched. Suddenly music began to play throughout the apartment. Sissoko threw a substance into the sensors, causing the smoke and incense to increase significantly. He started chanting in strange tones, swaying his body from side to side. Then, unexpectedly, the electricity in the apartment went off, plunging everything into darkness. Moments later, a loud noise came from an adjacent room, and a door burst open. A man ran out, screaming about a jinn that had appeared and attacked him. The bank manager was bewildered and didn't know what to do. Sissoko laughed and told him not to worry, explaining that such occurrences were normal, but the jinn might be uncomfortable with his presence as a stranger. He advised Ayoub to leave the apartment for a while until the money doubling process was complete. The manager, now scared and confused by what he witnessed, obeyed and waited outside, hearing sounds of music, movement inside the apartment, and even thunder, lightning and smoke seeping from under the door. After a while, the commotion inside the apartment subsided, the noises ceased, and the door opened. Sissoko, standing at the door, invited the bank manager back in. The manager entered to find the apartment filled with smoke, but the first thing he noticed was the money on the table. Sissoko pointed to the cash and told the manager, "Here is your money doubled. You gave me 100,000 and now it's 200,000. The manager approached the table incredulously, handling the money. It indeed seemed like the amount had doubled, 200,000, precisely twice what he had given Sissoko. At this moment the bank manager, Mohammed Ayoub, was utterly convinced by the act. Sissoko's performance, possibly with the help of accomplices, had him firmly believing in the sorcery and not harboring any doubts. It's worth noting that this money-doubling trick was a common scam in the 1990s, particularly executed by individuals of African nationalities. Ayoub fell into the trap, genuinely believing that Sissoko was a sorcerer who could double the money. This belief led him to start transferring substantial sums to Sissoko regularly. He opened a special account in the bank for Sissoko and continued to transfer money into it. Here, the story takes an even more illogical turn. Despite transferring millions from the bank's funds to Sissoko, the money never came back doubled. Ayoub just kept making one transfer after another, all from the bank's money. In the period between 1995 and 1998, the bank manager executed a staggering 183 transfer operations to Sissoko's accounts. We're not just talking about his accounts in Dubai, but also those in various countries around the world, including the United States, Switzerland, and France. The total of these transfers reached an astonishing $242 million. One of the fundamental questions is why the bank manager continued making these transfers, millions upon millions, even though Sissoko never doubled any amount as promised, but simply kept receiving the millions without any apparent reason. There's no clear explanation for this behavior, only conjectures. Some speculate that Sissoko might indeed have been a sorcerer, not just a con artist, and used magic to cloud the bank manager's judgment, compelling him to continue the transfers. Another theory suggests fear played a role. Perhaps the bank manager truly believed Sissoko was a sorcerer, and feared harm to himself or his family if he disobeyed. A third possibility is that Sissoko might have had some leverage or threat over the manager. When the bank manager first transferred a significant sum, likely in the millions, Sissoko might have refused to return the doubled amount and instead threatened to expose the manager if the transfers weren't continued. The second pressing question is how such massive amounts were withdrawn from the bank over 3 years without anyone noticing or raising an alarm. Even if the bank manager was the highest authority in the bank, there must have been accountants, routine audits, and inventory processes. How could such a huge sum, totaling $242 million, go unnoticed for 3 years? This aspect is perhaps the most baffling part of the story. It's possible that banking operations at the time were different, or the accounting systems weren't as advanced as we see today. We are talking about an incident that occurred around 30 years ago, but this explanation seems weak because regardless of the systems in place, the amount was extraordinarily large. Here begins the second chapter of the story, focusing on the luxurious life Sissoko enjoyed using the bank's money. As mentioned earlier, the story started in 1995. After deceiving the bank manager and securing millions, Sissoko decided to leave Dubai and return to his home country, Mali. During this time, the bank manager continued transferring millions to Sissoko's account. Sissoko spent several months in his home village of Dabad in Mali, which, like many villages in the region, was impoverished. He was showering the villagers with gifts and money and initiating various projects. This generosity transformed the village's economy, and the villagers started seeing him as a father figure and savior, affectionately calling him Basur. He became a beloved and revered figure in the community. After several months in the village, Sissoko decided to move to the United States, specifically New York, with the bank transfers still ongoing. In the early months of 1996, Sissoko arrived in New York and opened an account with Citibank, one of the largest American banks of the time. He visited the main branch in New York and somehow convinced one of the female employees to marry him, likely using his wealth as a lure. Despite knowing that Sissoko already had multiple wives in Africa, Europe, and other parts of America, she agreed. This marriage to the Citibank employee was primarily aimed at facilitating his banking transactions, as he planned to transfer all of his funds from Dubai to the United States. Indeed, Sissoko successfully transferred over $100 million from his account in Dubai to his account in the United States at Citibank. His new wife, an employee at Citibank, likely facilitated these transactions. While Sissoko might not have needed her assistance, her involvement certainly smoothed the process. In return, he gifted her $500,000 and continued to spend generously on her. To substantiate the transfer of this enormous sum from Dubai to Citibank in America, this page documents the case filed by Dubai Islamic Bank in 1999 against Citibank in the United States. It's a documented legal case that took place in New York courts between the two banks. The case details that from 1995 to 1998, with the assistance of 3 Citibank employees whose names are listed in the court documents, one of them being Sissoko's wife. According to the case, they helped a man named Foutanga Babani Sissoko in a money laundering operation. The court records and documents mention that the amount involved was $151 million. Let's get back to our story. Feeling secure once the money reached his American account, Sissoko started living a lavish lifestyle in the United States. He began spending extravagantly, purchasing whatever he desired. He even bought planes and established an airline named after his village, Daya Airlines. He bought a private small plane and 2 Boeing 727s, each with a capacity of 180 passengers. He intended to create a full-fledged airline, but he opted for used and older planes as new ones were prohibitively expensive, even for him. However, these ambitious plans didn't fully materialize. The planes mostly remained grounded at the airport, and the airline he dreamt of never truly took off. This was characteristic of Sissoko. He would enthusiastically invest millions into new ideas only to lose interest later. Sissoko, amidst his grand project ideas and extravagant spending, did not forget his people. He continued to support the inhabitants of his village, Daya, and his popularity grew, even extending to neighboring areas. Whenever he landed his plane, people would gather to welcome him with flowers and embraces, and he generously shared his wealth with them. Sissoko lived like royalty in every aspect, including popularity and public adoration. However, things took a turn for the worse in July 1996. At that time, Sissoko attempted to purchase 2 helicopters that belonged to the US military. These were old, decommissioned military helicopters dating back to the Vietnam War era. Sissoko had set his sights on them and submitted a purchase request to the US government, claiming that he wanted to convert these helicopters into air ambulances to transport the injured. He planned to use them in his village, where he had already built hospitals and clinics as an additional support tool for these medical facilities. However, the US government stalled the request due to suspicions that Sissoko might use the helicopters for other purposes, such as drug trafficking or arming them for use in civil conflicts in Mali, given their military origin. As a result, Sissoko's associates attempted to expedite the process through illegal means. Sissoko's followers tried to bribe a US official with $30,000. Sissoko didn't directly order this bribe, rather, it was an initiative from his supporters. Unfortunately for them, the official they attempted to bribe was honorable, and reported the bribery attempt to the authorities, leading to their arrest. Investigations revealed their connection to Sissoko, making him a wanted man in the bribery case. However, Sissoko was not in the US at the time, prompting an international warrant for his arrest through Interpol. Sissoko was eventually arrested in Geneva. He was detained in one of the prisons there, awaiting extradition to the US. He immediately hired American lawyers to defend him, with Thomas Spencer as his lead attorney. Sissoko requested Spencer meet him in the Swiss prison to discuss the case and subsequent legal procedures. Spencer, recounting his visit to Geneva, mentioned an unusual interaction with the prison director before meeting Sissoko. Spencer spoke with the director, who oddly requested to delay Sissoko's extradition for as long as possible. Surprised, Spencer inquired about the director's interest in the matter. The director revealed that Sissoko was arranging for exquisite meals to be flown in from Paris every night, creating a rather enjoyable situation for them. From the moment Thomas Spencer encountered the peculiar situation with the prison director in Geneva, he realized he was dealing with a unique and bizarre character. Soon after, Sissoko was extradited to the United States to face charges related to the bribery case, specifically in Miami, Florida, where the bribery incident occurred. Spencer's first move was to request a bail hearing, aiming to secure Sissoko's release until the trial. However, the US government and the prosecutor strongly opposed any bail, fearing Sissoko might flee due to the ongoing investigations into his activities, which they suspected involved more than just the bribery case. Despite these concerns, Sissoko rallied significant support for his bail hearing. Possessing a fortune like Sissoko, regardless of how it was acquired, enabled him to forge powerful connections with influential people. He leveraged these relationships to garner support at the bail hearing. His lawyer presented numerous diplomats and high-profile individuals from various embassies and positions who testified on his behalf. The judge even noted in the court record that he had never seen so many diplomats in a courtroom before. These testimonies portrayed Sissoko as a respected and prominent figure, bolstering his lawyer's argument that Sissoko was a man of stature in the community and unlikely to flee. Furthermore, his legal team assured the court that Sissoko was prepared to pay substantial bail to guarantee his presence at the trial. The judge, feeling immense pressure, especially from the prosecutor and government, who were adamantly against granting Sissoko bail, decided to set an extraordinarily high bail amount, unprecedented in Florida's courts. The bail was set at $20 million, an amount the judge believed to be prohibitive, assuming Sissoko wouldn't be able to pay it. However, after consulting with his defense team and understanding the situation, Sissoko surprised the court by agreeing to pay the bail. The bail was paid, and Sissoko was released. One of the first things he did after his release was to gift his lawyer and the defense team 7 cars. The lawyer and his assistants were astounded. It was the first time a client had given them such extravagant gifts, especially considering that Sissoko's trial was still pending. All they had achieved so far was to get him released on bail until his trial date. Sissoko was required to remain in Miami until this trial, but that wasn't a problem for him. During this period, he embarked on an unrestrained spending spree. His associates described how he would enter a jewelry store and make purchases worth $500,000 in a single